Members of the board, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pleasure that we welcome you to the 5th SNF Conference on Philanthropy. In the 5 years that the conference is taking place, it is the first time that we have ventured outside the Greek capital, finding ourselves in the beautiful Thessaloniki. This year's conference lends itself into a timely and important issue, the Mediterranean in crisis, exploring the wide geographic region which is currently facing enduring and diverse geopolitical challenges under the prism of the Foundation's main program areas. Following the conference, from June 23rd to June 26th, the Foundation presents in Athens the free cultural program Metamorphosis, the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Cultural Center to the world. Arriving at a seminal point for the Foundation's largest grant, as the SNFCC is nearing completion, the Metamorphosis program attempts to provide a glimpse of a hopeful future, a future that is possible and allows us to dream. Following last year's preview, attended by 40,000 guests, the SNFCC, designed by renowned architect Renzo Piano, comes to life and transforms itself into an open and accessible space for everyone, as this 4-day event will embrace performances and other programs by internationally acclaimed artists from around the world. This will be a living space of ideas, exploration, and interaction through an innovative program of cultural, athletic, and educational activities for all. Visitors will have the opportunity for the first time to enter the new buildings of the Greek National Opera and National Library of Greece, as well as to enjoy the Stavros Niarchos Park in its entirety. More than 400 artists from all over the world come together in the Metamorphosis program, where Greek and international creators contribute to a great celebration of collaboration and participation, values on which the SNFCC has been based. Distinguished professionals, each in their own field, have lent their talents and charisma in putting together a unique program. Limor Tomar, General Manager of Concerts and Lectures at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, is the event's performance curator, while the internationally acclaimed experimental artist Laurie Anderson is the guest artistic director for the event. Robert Storr, Dean of Yale School of Art, along with curators Barbara London, Kalliopi Minoudaki, and Francesca Pietropaolo, present Fireflies in the Night Take Wing, a special 4-night program surveying a selection of videos diverse in conceptual and poetic scope from over 50 international artists, many of whom are showing their work in Greece for the first time. The magician Mark Midden and his troupe will sweep away guests into interactive spectacles of illusion and imagination. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our colleagues working on the conference and the events taking place at the SNFCC. And before moving on to Mrs. Christina Lambropoulou, I would like to urge you to check the Philanthropy poster project exhibited outside in the patio, curated by Victor Cohen, faculty member in the School of Visual Arts in New York, which is a selection of posters designed by graduate and undergraduate design students based on quotes about philanthropy expressed in a visually enticing format. In the patio, you will also be able to personalize your wooden cover by engraving your name or other short phrase. Lastly, I would like to mention the conference's application, available to check from your smart devices at www.snf.org/conference. In addition to the full agenda and speakers' bios, the application includes a list of conference participants as well as an evaluation form, which we urge you to complete and share your thoughts about the conference. And now I give the floor to Mrs. Lambropoulou.
Thank you, Elenia. Good morning. Good morning and a warm welcome from me as well. Half a decade into what was supposed to be a one-off event gives us a good excuse as well as an opportunity to be a bit introspective. We started 5 years ago by focusing on the work we had done with specific grantees, both in Greece and internationally, within all 4 of our programmatic areas: arts and culture, education, health and sports, and social welfare. Since then, our approach has shifted, and our attention for these conferences has been addressed towards discussing much more complex issues, not so much in order to provide concrete answers, but rather in order to raise questions, understand the complexities of the issues, and consequently to understand the challenges that define our grant making. The purpose of the conference has therefore shifted and has become to recognize the complexity, but also to bring a broad global perspective into the equation, one that can help us with our work and can help us become more effective in the work that we do within all of our four program areas. This year is not different. However, we will be focusing on a specific geography. As a global foundation that does a lot of its work in Greece, we cannot ignore the complex and critical challenges that impact the Mediterranean region today. Therefore, over the next 2 days, we will be focusing on a range of critical issues that affect almost every single country in the specific region. We will touch upon the healthcare sector, where, based on the early exchanges with our panelists, we see the Greek health system being eroded to dangerously inadequate levels because of the erosion of the economic and political structures around it. And if the core of the problem, which is the core of the problem, which is the structural issues of the health system, is not addressed, then any ad hoc measures we take in reaction to the health problems that emerge because of the austerity measures can only serve as temporary fixes and can do very little to help the system become structural again. And although the Greek situation is perhaps unique in its magnitude, because Greece is today probably Europe's most depressed economy, the problem does not seem to be Greek-specific. Scientific evidence is emerging that points to the direction that sustained instability, sustained financial instability like Greece's, is a recipe for poor health locally, but also a recipe for larger health threats which are witnessed around the Mediterranean region and which can further spread. We will also touch upon cultural heritage, since the Mediterranean basin is home to some of the world's greatest archaeological sites. The protection of cultural heritage has been studied and debated extensively over the last years. And while the issues remain more or less the same, the current situation on the ground, recent technological developments, and factors like climate change, conflicts around the Mediterranean, limited financial resources because of the crisis, may require that we look at the issue from a different perspective. Our foundation has gained a lot of experience in this area, as we have funded numerous projects that focus on the restoration and preservation of archaeological sites. And the projects were assessed to be successful and impactful. But by looking carefully at what is going on around the region with respect to this topic, we see a much more complex picture arising. As an example, although we try to connect restoration and preservation efforts with sustainability, and we focus on the financial benefits of attracting more visitors and of involving the public, on the other hand, we see excessive number of tourists visiting some of the important sites of our region that are causing serious damages, and this is something that cannot be ignored, to put it simply. Naturally, we will debate on the refugee humanitarian crisis and explore how philanthropy can react to this seemingly intractable problem. A lot of work has been done on this topic as well, with many organizations on the ground and with various degrees of success. Most of the efforts have so far focused, and rightly so, on alleviating the most immediate needs of this crisis by trying to provide home and shelter, food and medical services. It has now become clear that the refugee crisis, the huge amount of time that refugees spend either stranded or in transit, is not an ephemeral challenge, but one that is here to stay. As a consequence, it is very probable that many years of schooling will be lost for thousands of children who are expected to be the future residents of Europe and eventually the future citizens of Europe. And this may lead to an irreversible impact by means of impoverishing permanently or isolating socially millions of people. The philanthropic sector cannot tackle this issue on its own, but it needs to be ready to play a decisive role in collaboration with others. And we also have to examine and consider seriously that the integration of refugees into local societies may be a much more effective way of helping them long-term with their issues, and also may be a way that entails the possibility of helping to regenerate rural and urban areas, while at the same time addressing one of Europe's most critical issues, the aging population and workforce. Looking around the Balkans, the Mediterranean, but Europe overall, we see poverty, inequality, unemployment, diminishing educational opportunities to be highly interrelated and not contained within geographic boundaries. What happens to one part of the population affects the rest of the population as well as future generations. What happens in one part of the area has obvious economic and social consequences on the rest of the region. Can philanthropy help explore models that can adapt well into the Mediterranean environment in order to address some of these issues? Can social isolation and exclusion, prejudice and discrimination be tackled effectively just through reactive educational and social welfare programs? Or should the third sector, does the third sector have a moral obligation to do even more? It is this type of questions that we will be addressing over the next 2 days, while providing at the same time a forum for a global conversation that can help Balkan and Mediterranean societies confront some of our issues. This can only be achieved if all of us, across every single sector, work together, listen carefully and attentively to society's real needs, stretch our mandates, and start capitalizing on existing initiatives while taking risks in order to look for new, innovative approaches, and also take a long-term approach to these evolving and remaining issues. At the same time, we need to understand that the complexity and the difficulty of implementing and attaining results is rather challenging in a continuously changing environment. We look forward to the next 2 days as a first step to achieving some of these goals with all of you. At this point, I would like to invite to the stage Mr. Andreas Dracopoulos, co-president of the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, to officially open the conference. Thank you very much.